evening, everyone, and welcome. This is Spirituality in Action. And as always, I remain your host, Clement Etuk. With me in the studio on the program is Valerie Izuegbuna.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Awesome. Today we will be treating the topic, Great is His Faithfulness, a daily gift of grace. Before we proceed, let me make the following announcement. If you are seeking to discover true freedom and healing, then let me introduce you to a remarkable book that has changed lives for over a century. Science and Health, the Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. This groundbreaking work explores the spiritual laws behind Christ Jesus' teachings and healing works. It explains how understanding God as divine love and truth can bring healing to any challenge, whether physical, emotional, or financial. Science and Health is not just a book, it's a guide to practical spirituality and a deeper understanding of the Bible. It helped countless people around the world find peace, purpose, and well-being. If you are seeking God deeply, to know yourself as His perfect image and likeness, to overcome sin, sickness, and death, then this book is for you. Now, without wasting much time, I'll go straight to it. Valerie.
Yeah.
Awesome. How can we better cultivate receptivity to God's daily gift of grace, especially during challenging or uncertain times, to experience His faithfulness more fully?
Well, one of the things I really love about Christian Science is that everything is backed by law. And that's why we call it a science. To help us understand how law works, we can think about other forms of law that we are familiar with, like the law of mathematics, or the law that governs the rotation of the earth, or even one as simple as the law of gravity. We all know how gravity works. It's not a hit or miss thing, sorry. You don't toss a stone into the air and wonder if gravity will work this time, whether it will work today as well as it worked yesterday. You don't, because you know it is backed by an unfailing law. That stone must fall to the ground. God's faithfulness is equally backed by law, and that means it is very reliable. It does not fail. We can count on God's faithfulness all the time, in every situation, no matter where we are and no matter who we are. God's faithfulness to me is God saying to us, I love you. I've got you. All is well. Now, this faithfulness is a gift of grace, like the topic says. Most Christians will define grace as unmerited favor from God. The underlying factor in grace being that, we don't have to do anything to deserve it. And sometimes in Christian Science, when we talk about God's grace, especially in terms of His faithfulness, we understand it better by thinking of the sun. It's a good analogy, I think. Everybody gets sunshine. It is not selective, and we don't have to do anything to deserve it. The sunshine I get today does not depend on how much I prayed yesterday. It doesn't depend on how smart I am or how many degrees I have. No. Everyone is entitled to equal amounts of sunshine. I don't get more than you do. And you don't get more than maybe the manager of this radio station gets. So if faithfulness is a gift of grace from God, it means that just like we are all entitled to sunshine, we are all entitled to God's faithfulness. Now let's get down to faithfulness as an idea. Most people understand the concept of faithfulness. We try to be faithful to our spouses, to our friends. It's about loyalty and commitment. So simply put, being faithful is keeping a vow or a promise. You are faithful to your spouse because you're keeping the promise or vow you made to them at your wedding. Now, unfortunately, most people end up being, or some people end up being unfaithful. But God's faithfulness doesn't work that way. Like we already established, it is backed by law, so it doesn't fail. Think of all the promises you can find in the Bible. There are promises that cover every need we may ever have. For instance, if we are looking for healing, physical healing, there's a promise that says of God, He sent his word and healed them and delivered them of their destructions. I think many people know this verse. It's in Psalm 107, verse 20. Now, because God is faithful and his faithfulness is a law, we know that that promise will always be fulfilled in our experience. Or how about God will supply all your needs according to his riches and glory by Christ? That's Philippians 4:19. Again, that promise is backed by the law of God's unfailing faithfulness. The Bible says he is faithful that promised. That's talking about God. So it is this law of God's unfailing faithfulness that upholds our joy, that upholds our peace, our health, harmony, even our safety and protection. God's care for us is eternal and unlimited, just like God is. It doesn't fail, and we will never, ever run out of it. So imagine the reassurance that comes from knowing that God's care is backed by law, and so it never fails. So in a nutshell, whatever you are facing, whatever anyone is facing, look for a promise of God that addresses it. Think of the fact that the God that has made you that promise is faithful. And then think of the fact that his faithfulness is backed and upheld by law. Where does that leave us? With foolproof answers to every need.
Awesome. I like that. With foolproof answers to all we need. God's faithfulness is backed by his law. And for us, it starts first with the truth that we are his image and likeness. And that on its own is an overarching law, because we do not get anything or have anything that is underived from God.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much. That's very insightful. I'm keeping that. Now, in what practical ways can we demonstrate our trust in God's unwavering faithfulness and grace, both in our own lives and in the lives of those around us?
Practical ways?
Yes.
Well, I would say it boils down to two things. One, trust. Two, be grateful. Mary Baker Eddy writes in Science and Health that step by step will those who trust him find that God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. If we find it difficult to trust God, it is because we don't understand him. And quite frankly, I can't blame anybody who doesn't want to trust blindly in anything or anyone. If you're my friend, for instance, and I trust you, it's because over time I have come to know you well and know that I can actually trust you. Children trust their parents because they know them. They know that if daddy has promised ice cream, daddy will deliver ice cream. So contrary to what many people think or say, there is no mystery to God. If you want to learn to trust God, get to know him. A good way to do that would be to study the Bible along with a book that I have found very helpful for decades now. And that book is Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. What Science and Health does is it helps us understand the spiritual meaning of the Bible. So get to know God. God is knowable. When you know him even a little, you start to trust. And when you start to trust, gratitude sets in. Gratitude for God's faithfulness. I'll tell you about something I read once. I once read a very interesting testimony in one of our periodicals. A man had been searching for a job and he finally found one. However, the position demanded that he had to have a car. So he was offered the job on a Friday and told he would need to resume on Monday with a car. Unfortunately, this man did not have a car and he didn't have the money to get one. Now remember, he had just 2 days to do it. Anyway, all through the time he was searching for a job, a Christian Science practitioner had been praying with him. Christian Science practitioners are people who are available to pray for people for the resolution of any kind of difficulty. And you can find a listing of them online or in Christian Science journals. Anyway, this man reached out to the practitioner to tell her what was going on. He had the job, but he needed a car. The man was distressed because the time seemed so short. The practitioner asked him, if you had the money, what would you be doing? He said he would go to a car dealership and get a car. The practitioner said, do that. So the man and his wife set off and went to a car dealership. They picked out a car, told the dealer they would be back later. But nothing happened. Friday went by, nothing happened. Saturday, nothing happened. And by Sunday, the man was just frantic with worry. So he called the practitioner back and she asked him an interesting question. She said, "What time is it now?" And he said, "It's 5 p.m. She asked him, "Do you have everything you need now at 5 p.m.? He said he did. So the practitioner then told him that he would also have everything he needed on Monday morning. And that was the end of that call. Immediately after that call, the man's phone rang and his new boss called to tell him that he had forgotten to mention that the company would cover the cost of a new car for him. So Monday morning came along and our friend was off to work in a fully paid for car. Now, I find this testimony striking because the practitioner understood and trusted firmly in God's faithfulness, and that trust resulted in healing. Another instance of God's faithfulness I know of was with my mom. This was shortly after the COVID pandemic. She was traveling to the United Arab Emirates and had a 2-week layover in Ghana. So while in Ghana and shortly before she was due to leave for the UAE, she became very ill to the point where speech and movement were difficult. The airports, both in Ghana and especially in Dubai, are quite large, and she needed to do a lot of walking, and she was finding it difficult to walk at all. So she called a Christian Science friend to support her with prayers, and he did. Trusting in God's faithfulness, she was able to do all that was required of her and arrive safely in Dubai. And shortly after that experience, she was completely healed. God's faithfulness, which is backed by law, held her up, gave her the strength she needed in the moment. And like I said, complete healing followed. I want to round up by saying, take a moment each day, if you will, just to be grateful for God's limitless promises, knowing that God is faithful and that his faithfulness is unwavering because it is backed by law. Trusting in God's faithfulness will get you through anything.
Awesome. Trusting in God's faithfulness will get you through everything. Thank you very, very much. The insights are very clear and direct. Now, for inquiries and comments, get in touch via email to spiritualityonpoint@gmail.com. I'll take it again, spiritualityonpoint@gmail.com. Or you can reach us via telephone, and the numbers to call are 080-3333-3803. I'll take the number again, 080-3333-3803 or 080-6231-4394. 080-6231-4394. Thank you, Valerie, for the very wonderful insights shared, and looking forward to being here next week. Have a lovely weekend, everyone.